everyone, I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones, and I've got 3 tips for prioritizing health and longevity in the coming year. It's so important to take proactive steps towards a healthier lifestyle. It takes a little bit of planning, but it doesn't have to be rocket science, and I want to get you on your journey so that you won't ever look back. I guess my main takeaway is done is better than perfect. I want to give you 3 tips on how to jumpstart your new year. Step number 1, integrating a balanced diet. What is that going to look like? Many of you know I am a trained cooking instructor for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, one of the top, maybe the top vegan organization on the planet. They do so many great things for the animals and as well as supporting health in all forms of our lifestyle. And they first started out as the Cancer Project, and then it just became so popular, and many people found, and health professionals found, that eating a whole foods, plant-based diet was the single most important thing you can do to reverse all kinds of conditions, not only cancer. And I saw this so much in the classes when I had the time to teach them. Now I'm doing so many different things. I don't teach the classes much anymore, but I have just found that there are just a few things that you can do to really jumpstart your nutrition program. And yes, I'm just getting over what has been going around in our community. I think my symptoms were way less than most of the people that I work with, but I attribute that to eating a very healthful, whole foods, unprocessed kind of diets. PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, is one of the most respected organizations when it comes to nutrition recommendations. It is an organization, a nonprofit, that has doctors and dietitians, and so it is their recommendations that I have followed all these many years, and I'm just the lucky beneficiary of this. So what does that look like? 2 or 3 servings of beans a day. Beans are the main source of our protein, although there's protein in everything, so don't stress about that. 4 or 5 servings of vegetables. If you're trying to lose weight, make sure they're raw, because you got to work harder. Your body does and your mouth does to chew all that, and then your brain gets the message sooner that you're getting filled up. 2 or 3 servings of fruits, 4 or 5 servings of whole grains. And we're talking about complex carbohydrates here. That's kind of an old term. You know, it's just that the idea that your body has to work harder to digest whole grains that have the outer fiber on them, the outer bran, whether it's wheat, oats, millet, rice, all these things, you know, brown rice, whole wheat, those are grains that have the outer fiber on them. We don't have a protein deficiency problem in Western culture. We have a fiber deficiency. So important to eat those whole grains, and it's what fuels our brains so that we can be an athlete if we want to be, or just enjoy life in general. Meal planning doesn't have to be this huge stressful thing. It can be as simple, because I've actually gone to work at a running store now so that I can supplement my running addiction, my racing addiction, because I'm all about proving that vegans can do this, and I'm very close to placing in my 300th 5K or longer race since 2006, just on plants, because somebody came up to me at a race once and said, you can't do it. So I have, as a result, my lifestyle has been very fast-paced, and I really don't have the kind of time I used to prep meals. So what is that going to look like? Beans in a pot, whether it's a crock pot or an Instapot or a pressure cooker or just a plain old-fashioned pot, and maybe you cook your garbanzo beans for 6 hours if you're doing it old school, old pot way. But certainly you can go off and let them cook all day in a slow cooker, and you cook enough beans for the week. You know, they'll keep in the fridge that long, and you can also freeze them as long as there's some juice around them to do that. It's, you know, they tend to be a little more mushier, but then, you know, that's good for a soup if you want to mix them in with a soup. And speaking of soups, that is something when the weather is cooler, which it is, which is one of the reasons I picked up this little thing, because I ran 2 nights in a row out in the cold. But soups are a great way to make something in advance, and you have it for 3 or 4 days. And then again, if you think you're not going to finish it all, you can freeze it. So it's just a great way to kind of keep your fridge stock full of some kind of stock pot so that you are well nourished throughout the course of the week. But even just having a pot of beans that you have cooked that you can kind of munch off of anytime, along with your whole grain. I also keep a pot of rice in the fridge that's been cooked, and I can just put the beans and the grains together, microwave them if I need to, throw a little salsa on top, have a burrito if I want to, have some fresh greens always on hand, even if it's just a big box that it comes prepackaged that way. Although I do prefer if they're not in a package, but sometimes you just can't avoid that. And eating your greens is so important. Again, coming back to that phrase, done is better than perfect. And it's just so important to, if you want to plan out your meals for the week, you can certainly do that, and then pick a few recipes, maybe 3 or 4 that you think you're going to stick to. I'm actually doing an experiment now, some recipe planning for PCRM, to show that places in food deserts might be able to eat on a budget and eat a healthful vegan diet. And so we have to go through this recipe testing, checking out Whether you can buy these foods at a convenience store or at some kind of store where there may not be a grocery store in the immediate neighborhood. So it's all very fascinating to see that you can do this on a budget and you can do it and stay healthy. Step number 2 to prioritizing your health for the new year: establishing a consistent running or exercise routine. It doesn't have to be running, of course. Obviously, that's my passion, but if it's just walking, that is totally fine. Being able to walk an hour a day is just so important. And the way you do this is set your clothes out the night before, no excuses, have a big glass of water. In the morning, I usually try and drink 8 to 16 ounces because that really starts the action in your colon to clean things out, and then you feel so much lighter and energized to start your exercise program, whatever it is. Now, it can be something that's very low impact, like walking, like yoga, like Tai Chi. You can Google all these programs. I have other YouTube videos on how to do simple exercises, how to do warm-ups and cool-downs, which can be just the basis of your exercise. You don't even have to go out running, especially when it's so cold. And another reason I think I picked up what I've got is, we went inside to the gyms with this cold weather, and so many people where I work have this thing that's going around because it's hard to wipe down that equipment, but that's something you should definitely do if you are going to a gym. It's just important to have regular exercise no matter what your age group, and you want to get your heart rate up. And how do you know that? Well, you can certainly take your pulse. You can feel whether your heart is going up, or of course all of the wonderful smartwatches that are out there that will tell you this and make it so much easier than when I started out on this journey now 44 years ago. When the new year changes, I up my numbers and say, yes, I've been a runner, I've been a vegan for the better part of 44 years, started in 1980. So it's just been a passion of mine. I've been a gym rat, and I encourage you to do the same, or have your home weights, kettlebells, anything that works for you, just to be dedicated to getting at least 30 minutes, preferably an hour, of heartbeat raising exercise every single day. Okay, you can take a day off, one day off a week to rest. I have also really liked just turning on music and dancing around the room. There are those little posters that say dance like nobody's watching. Do it. And if you get an audience, all the better, but just do something that's fun for you. A stationary bike, a treadmill, as we like to call them. But yes, it is important just to do something. I know that Dr. Michael Greger, one of our esteemed vegan doctors who does a lot of wonderful videos on nutritionfacts.org, he does a lot of his talks on camera walking on a treadmill, just one of those walking treadmills, and you can get them. I had one. It was a little distracting for me. Not sure I can make the mind-body connection as well as he does, but whatever floats your boat, if you can just find a way to keep your body moving, it's all good. I just want to stress, you don't have to be a nationally ranked sprinter like I am. For me, it just started out as I got to do something every day to keep moving, and for me, I was able to just walk for an hour, and then I found a way to get to the beach so I could walk there for an hour, and that really inspired me. And then one day the birds were flying overhead and I just started running, and it felt so natural. And you might find that you too evolve that way before you even know it, that you're just so programmed to feel good with exercise that you want to keep doing. You just want to keep doing it. And as I like to say, it is a very fun addiction. Whatever it is you find. Pickleball is such a rage here in Florida, and we even now at our running store have a whole section that's just devoted to pickleball, the shoes that you need to buy, and some of the clothing, all that kind of fun stuff. But again, it doesn't take a big budget to do these things. You can just find a way. Many tennis courts now are being converted to pickleball courts, so check in your area to see what works for you. Step number 3 for setting your longevity and health priorities for the new year is the whole cultivating mental well-being. And this is so much easier said than done. We tend to brush it off and say, that's just low priority, but it really is important. And it is such a factor to be able to keep your stress low and to have the social connections that make you feel happy and joyous. And there are ways you can manage stress, whether it's just counting to 10, whether it's a more structured form of meditation where you actually go to a meditation class or an instructor who teaches you how to do it, finding a mantra. You can make one up. You don't have to be given one for a very expensive price that they sometimes charge in transcendental meditation, but whatever works for you. It's important just to find a way to focus on relaxation. Lying down, you can just allow yourself to have your mind wander off and just do that for 20, 30 minutes just to find some form of mental relaxation. Another part is you can go to a structured class like yoga or a meditation class at a gym. Many gyms now have those kinds of programs. Another thing that you can do is journaling. Our smartphones now have usually a note section, and if you can master the art of dictation, it's really not that hard, even though I sometimes have challenges with people my own age trying to get them to use the dictation function. But my brain goes faster than my hand in writing, so I love the ability to just kind of talk to my phone and put it all down and kind of get my feelings out. It's sort of like a one-way therapist, I guess. It's the paper isn't going to talk back to you, the notes aren't going to give you feedback, but there it is, and you can review it and try not to stew over it too much. A lot of times when we keep things in our brain and don't let it out, then we do tend to rehash and replay the script and try and change things in our brain. But sometimes just getting it out in the form of verbal expression is a great way if you don't have another person or friend or significant other to share that with. But just express it somehow. And of course, activity is a way to let, physical activity, exercise is a way to let those stressors go as well. Then finally, social connections. I've mentioned a number of times in my past videos about the meetup site. You can go on there and type in any interest, whether it's veganism, whether it's sailing, walks on the beach. You can find any group that does that. There's even a group in our area that it's a meetup group and a Facebook group called Dancing on the Beach, which is really cool. And people just go out and dance on a Saturday night if the weather holds. So there are all kinds of things like that that don't take a huge amount of money, if any money at all, and only take a small amount of commitment of time. So pretty cool to do that. One of the surprises for me about going to work at my little day job of focusing on the running store is that I see people there. Like just yesterday, there was a race director who came in and she said, "I didn't know you were working here." And then we had like this 10-minute conversation, and she bought some things for awards at her race. So that kind of thing where you are engaged with people and just having that social connection is so important. And the meetups will help you do that if you don't have a way of doing that in your own personal life, because so much of it as we age, we get isolated, our kids move away. There was a woman at our store yesterday, an employee, who said, "Today I just became an empty nester," and all 3 of her kids moved out of her house on the same day. What a shock that was. And her husband sent her flowers. So those are the kinds of things we are challenged with, and we may not really plan for them, but some days it just kind of arrives at our doorstep and we have to cope. So I hope that you see the interconnectedness of diet, lifestyle, exercise, and mental health. All of these dots are so important to connect, and it creates an overall feeling of health. I know that now in my 70s, it's hard for me as the youngest child not to think about that this is the decade that both of my sisters died, and I really don't want to go there. But I know that coming into this decade, I have so many advantages that I have purposely set out since the time I was old enough to sign a contract at a gym. I always knew that being fit was just the best hope I had, along with a healthy, whole foods, plant-based diet, that this was the best chance I had of making it out of this decade alive. And sometimes I like to say genes do not determine destiny, and you just have to look at all the different things that we do have control over and find ways to have joy in our life. Just going outside for a walk just can do so much for us, whether it's walking, biking, swimming, anything that you can do to get the blood flowing, because it is all about connecting these dots. And when we do these activities, often we can do them with others, and it really touches all of the important factors that are going to make you feel better and enjoy life as we know it, because it is about coming to the finish line in the best shape of our lives so that we can just enjoy every moment, because as we know, life can be taken away in a second. And being able to stay active is just the number one thing. However we do it, enjoy life and arrive at the finish line healthy. I would also just encourage you to start small. Don't feel like you have to do this great big overhaul, but just figure out 1 or 2 things that you can start today that will work for you. Maybe just incorporating more beans in your diet. And I have a whole section in my book, Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, How to Tame the Wild Beans. Sometimes people have gas when they start, but you can use kombu, which is a seaweed, to help neutralize the enzymes that sometimes upset people. Start with smaller beans like lentils. Cook them longer. Boil them in water for a minute or 2 and then drain the water and then add new water and cook your beans if you're cooking from scratch that way. Sometimes canned beans don't cause the upset that cooking beans from scratch do. So you just have to experiment with all these different things and try 1 new thing a day and just rejoice in how you are changing your life. And of course, if you have any questions at all on how to do this or anything about what I've said, please feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'm always happy to try and answer them. And I'm good at saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. And that's part of my passion as a former TV investigative reporter, to find the answer as best I can to not only help myself, but of course, help other people. So thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one. Until then, gotta run.